Revolution Radio proudly presents live from Phoenix, Arizona, the Truth Denied Talk Radio with host Roxy Lopez. Join us here for topics you won't hear about on mainstream news, such as chemtrails, GMOs, nutrition, and conspiracy facts regarding your personal sovereignty. Humanity is 7 billion strong. We are the majority. And now, live from the Valley of the Sun, your host, Roxy Lopez.
And I want to wish you a very good evening, and thanks so much for joining us on this wonderful Friday the 17th of May. And boy, is 2013 flying by. I just have to say that every week practically, because I don't know where time gets sucked into a black hole around here, but it's probably because we're all so busy. Thanks for joining us. Hello, everybody in the chat room. I totally count on you for questions for our guests. Tonight we have two guests. Fabulous guests, and I look forward to bringing them on. In the first hour, we'll be having Jim Bowden. He is the author of The Ringer, an Extraterrestrial Proving Ground. You really want to pay attention to this because it sounds absolutely fabulous, and Jim has a special take on this. The book was published in October of 2012. And in April of 2012, astronomers Paul Davies and Robert Wagner, who are affiliated with Arizona State University, filmed 5 large UFOs flying over the surface of the moon. Even though Paul Davies is a theoretical physicist and a cosmetologist who is now involved in astrobiology, and Robert Wagner is affiliated with the ASU's School of Earth and Space Exploration. U.S. mainstream media did not consider this scientific research to be newsworthy. Isn't that interesting? While scientific discoveries of this magnitude should be front page news, as you all know, they are purposely buried, preventing any educative knowledge regarding extraterrestrials. People are encouraged to trust their eyes and ears regarding every material object around themselves except UFOs. While a plane certainly looks like a plane and a helicopter looks like a helicopter, UFOs have been socially controlled and are seen as anything but a UFO within the United States. We have been conditioned to dismiss the global extraterrestrial aerial phenomenon, while the idea of an extraterrestrial presence is still ridiculed. This book examines how extraterrestrials can and do mentally influence people. If you haven't been abducted or been in contact with extraterrestrials, you may find this book shocking. For those of you who have had contact with extraterrestrials, you will understand, and that's the author, Jim Bowden. Jim, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for taking the time to be with us tonight.
Hi, thanks, Roxy. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. With that in mind, a lot of our listeners are, we have some abductees in the listening audience. We have people that talk about mind control as well. They feel that they're being mind controlled by some presence. And then, of course, we've interviewed countless UFO documentary writers and film people. And, we just keep coming back to this. So thank you so much for taking the time to write the book, The Ringer, an Extraterrestrial Proving Ground. Can you tell us a little bit more, other than what I had read about the book? Can you tell us about a little bit more about yourself for the listeners who are new to you, Jim, and what caused you, what influenced you to write this book?
Well, I've owned a few businesses during my life, but the last thing I did, I was a stockbroker for a while, and the reason I wrote the book is because, frankly, my 11-year-old son and I were mentally attacked in my home in Arizona. And there was quite a bit of physical evidence to go along with that. But it was very severe. My son was carted off to a mental ward, and there he gave statements which if you read them and you've had any experience with ETs, you can see that he's not lying. He's telling the truth. He was scared. He said they were very powerful, and they were. That's what started the experience for both of us. We were separated. He was eventually talked into believing it never happened. That's easy to do when you're 11 years old. And that's essentially when the ringer began for me, and it lasted probably at least 3 months.
Oh, my goodness. And did this develop out of nowhere, Jim?
Yeah, totally out of nowhere. He did tell me that he had some extraterrestrial goings-on happening at school prior to this happening at home, and I believe him. He has no reason to lie to me. So if there is, everything's mental. So you have to remember, you have to pay attention. And if you want to try and dismiss it, I suppose you could. But if it's, I guess the word is severe enough, you can't dismiss it.
Right. That's what I get a lot of reports about mental abductions, constantly. And people are very confused about it because there's different kinds of gang stalking out there and government interference and, of course, radio waves and microwaves and all kinds of stuff they're playing with, in the military and so forth. So people get very confused. They don't know what they got hit with. What made you hone in on ET as opposed to, let's say, military military?
I knew that it had to be something like an extraterrestrial. I mean, if you remember or if you recall, there's something called the Jinn, which is in the Middle East, and I'm not sure if they're around or not, if they're wives' tale or whatever, but they could probably do what these ETs did according to their legend. But as far as I know, it is extraterrestrial. When I would wake up in the morning, as soon as I would wake up, the very second I woke up, I was attacked with a feeling of such dread that I was going to die. That was the whole purpose of it. And it lasted probably an hour. This took place over 5 mornings, and eventually you get used to it because you realize, well, this is going to go away. It went away yesterday. It'll go away again. So you work your way through it, or you allow it to finish itself, and you don't die. But that's their whole idea, is to make you feel like you are literally going to die.
And are there words? Are there words with this? Is this something in the mind that's saying this, or is it more of an emotional? You know what I mean? Like where you're in panic and you don't know why it's not coming from anywhere, and you feel like you're going to die.
Well, the trick is Droxy. The trick is never panic. Never ever panic. That's what they want. You never ever panic. The entire time I was in the ringer, I didn't panic. You can't. If you do, they own you. So you cannot panic. What you can do is ride it out. It's going to end. It always does. It always ends. Okay. So you can just ride it out.
Okay. And now, can you describe some of the physical evidence of the attack?
Yeah. Our computer, for example, we had a laptop computer, and when we would open it up, the cursor, where the little arrow that you move your mouse with. Okay. Well, when we'd open it up, that would be spinning in a circular direction, not necessarily even, sometimes uneven, but completely on its own. And what I had to do in order to try to use a computer was you grab the mouse and try to gain control of the cursor so you could actually use a computer. This happened day after day. Both Sam and I saw this. I later went to McAfee and Norton and all of the big boys, Trend Micro, and said, can you make a computer do this? And they said no. And I said, well, will you put that in writing? And they said no, we won't. They didn't want to be subpoenaed. Also, on the carpet, there was an insignia of something that looked like an insect. And it was very obvious. It wasn't any kind of just any stain that could have occurred there from dropping coffee or something like that. This is very definite and very, very clear. Also, in my bedroom, in the armoire, on the top shelf, inside there was some sort of gunk in there. I don't know what it was, but no, there's no way a mouse could get up there to do that. So it was left there by these things, whatever they were. But I've had lots of evidence since then. That did occur. I have evidence from yesterday, but it was something that occurred yesterday. But at any rate, yeah, there was physical evidence.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, have you had any of the evidence tested?
No, because no one believes you. I mean, trying to get the people in the virus business to give me some sort of documentation saying that it's impossible to make a computer do that, a virus can't do it, they wouldn't write anything down. And that's what I needed. I needed something in writing.
Yeah, no kidding. And Jim, you're not alone, because we experience this with when we're testing water, rain clouds, rain that comes from chemtrail clouds, the whole 9 yards. You know, even in double blinds, they're all working together against us. And so basically they just, you know, tell us that there's nothing to worry about and everything is within the EPA standards, and then the EPA just keeps pushing those standards, you know, higher and higher and higher anyway. So you're right. It's very difficult to get this tested, because no matter what, even if you have a report going with, let's say, some of the droppings in the dresser drawer, they'll just tell you that it was a mouse or something like that, and you're stuck. You're stuck right there.
Right, and even like with the insignia on the carpet, I left it there for a long time, but eventually I just cleaned it, because I knew that people's frame of mind and people's attitude towards extraterrestrials is they do not exist. So that was the situation around my house. I knew that trying to get anybody to look at anything was almost really futile. I thought that the cursor thing, because it can't happen by itself. I mean, McAfee and those guys said that. It cannot happen. So I thought that would be good to use as evidence, but I couldn't get anywhere with it.
And you must be aware, too, with the computer, that if somebody has networked and hacked into your system, that they can use the mouse. You do know that.
I suppose that's probably true. I don't know that, to be honest with you.
You didn't know that? Okay.
I know. I went to those guys and asked them concerning viruses, can this be done? And they said, no, it can't be done.
Okay. Because that is a way to do that as well. And I would
well, if somebody does, I know what you're talking about. If somebody has a second computer and you allow them to come in, they can do that, I suppose. Yeah. I suppose that's true.
Or if they hacked in, you know what I mean? And so now your mouse is being used by somebody else. And of course, we've had this happen and checked to see, you know, if we have some kind of virus or somebody's networked in. But, I mean, you've ruled this out, and that's fine. And I just, you know, I'm answering questions. I'm reading the minds of my listeners right now. Let's see.
Now, Roxy, I'd like to tell you something. Yesterday I was doing some legal work, and these ETs, frankly, know that I know a lot about them. They do not want me getting anything done at all with anyone legally or otherwise. When I came to the legal form that I needed, repeatedly they turned my computer to DOS every time I came to the form. So you can call that a coincidence if you want to. It's not a coincidence.
Correct. And I did have a gentleman on the show that I'll put you in touch with if you care for it later. And he actually talked a lot about this. His name is his name is James. We call him James Gilliland. And he was saying that this is extraterrestrial as well. He said one of their biggest advantages is getting funny with our technology. They take it over.
Absolutely.
They wreak absolute havoc.
All right, and I'll tell you something. In the Ringer, I learned of an ET who was supposedly the most powerful ET going as far as on this planet. Mm-hmm. And its name is IT. That's its name.
Oh, my God.
And, of course, our information technology is called IT. But they can work their way around computers, telephones, cell phones, anything like that. Wi-Fi they love because it's in the air. I mean, if you have a hardline phone, they can't get to it. But if you don't, they can.
Right, right. And is your experience with that particular thing? Obviously, you have great discernment because you know the difference. You know what's happening. You've picked up on it. And of course, your book gets into this. What is the ringer? What is that?
Well, the ringer is hard to, well, a little bit difficult to explain. Basically, what it is it's a torture situation. It is quite torturous. Sometimes in the ringer, you are in a dreamlike state, and other times you're in 3D reality. It just depends. In essence, when anytime you get involved with a gray, and I believe those are the ones that are the worst here. That's my opinion. They will pull you into their dream. Okay? Try to understand that. Not your dream, their dream. Now, if you can get, what your job is to get out of their dream. Now, during the ringer, it is an exercise of, here's how it works. We're going to break you. Now you're going to recover. Then we will break you. Now you recover. We'll break you, and then you will recover. They even have something that they call pop and fresh, which is because they don't allow you to sleep much at all during this experience. You're exhausted. And pop and fresh, you can either be lying down or you can be standing up as long as you're standing still, or you can be sitting down if you're still. You have to be still. They can energize you so that even though you haven't had much sleep, they can keep you going by energizing your body. And they call it pop and fresh. It's a crazy name, but that's what they call it.
My word. And of course, sleep deprivation is just horrible in itself for anybody who has ever had it. And it sounds like a perfectly carved abuse cycle that you're describing.
Well, as I said, it is torture. It literally is, because every day you think that you're finished with a ringer. Every day. You think you're done. You think you're going to get out. They tell you you're going to get out. And you know you're out, okay? What happens the next day? You're in. And it goes on like that for months. Now, I'm not the first person that's gone through it. I'm sure of that. Most people sell out. And by that, when I say sell out, it's just like you might say when you go down to the crossroads and you meet the devil or whatever, and you sell your soul. Most people do sell out. I didn't.
Mm-hmm. What would be an example of selling out?
Accepting millions of dollars, a lot of talent, whatever your dreams might be, they'll provide it, but they own you. So that's the other half of it.
Mm-hmm. And just out of curiosity, what is their reason? What is their motive? Do you think, for doing this?
Well, I think they want your soul. There's no question about that. They want it, and so that's why they kept torturing me so long, because I wouldn't play their game. I said, look, all I want is my kids. They had prevented me from seeing my children when this happened. They said, he's saying extraterrestrials came in his house. Don't let him around his kids. They got a legal piece of paper saying that. There's names for that. And all I wanted was my kids, and I kept telling them that in the ringer. I just want my kids, nothing else. And they found that unacceptable, I suppose.
Well, and they used it.
Well, they did. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know how long it was supposed to last, but it lasted quite a long time.
Mm-hmm. Now, for instance, your children, because you opened up by talking about your son, how is he still being attacked?
No, but unfortunately, mental influence is their biggest weapon by far. Okay, they do have weapons, which I experienced when I was in the ringer.
Okay.
And by the way, that's why the book is anonymous, because I did write in detail about their weapons, and I really am not a fan of government, and I do not want them talking to me or asking me any questions whatsoever about extraterrestrial weapons. I don't want to hear from government. That's why the book is anonymous.
Okay.
However, I'm sorry, your question again was?
Well, I am kind of paying attention to the motives of these types, and you said that they wanted, our soul.
Oh, my son. You mentioned my son, Sam.
Yeah.
I'd like to tell you about that because Sam, after being taken to the mental ward, my ex-wife then put him in a what she calls an academy, which is really like a wayward boys center, where you can't have shoestrings in Utah. He's been there for 17 months. She won't let him out. And he's never really done anything wrong. He can't get out of there because she knows that if he gets out, he'll want to be with me. So she leaves him in there.
Are you able to communicate with him?
They will not let me speak with him.
Okay. That's very sad, and I'm sorry to hear that. I really am. That's awful. Now,
It is awful.
It is awful. I mean, and this is just another level of torture for you. It's pretty obvious.
It's been going on too long, I'll tell you that. And I do plan on some lawsuits, which I've already initiated.
Okay. And those lawsuits would be, we're coming up on a break shortly, but is it too much to get into to talk about that for a brief second?
Well, I can tell you that there was, the court wanted a psychological evaluation, and the fellow who did it was in Ventura, California, a psychologist, and he wrote in his evaluation that if I even thought about extraterrestrials, I shouldn't be able to see my kids. Now, I believe there are plenty of people out there in the world who think about extraterrestrials on occasion.
Right.
Okay? They get to see their kids.
Right, exactly. No, this is really out there. I mean, it's obviously scripted and following some sort of script, and it bothers me to just hear it. I'm very sorry I can feel the pain that you're in. And I'm sorry for it. I truly am.
Well, I am suing him. That's the legal papers I talked about earlier. When it went to DOS, they're for him. I'm definitely going after him because the reason being, right now you've had citizens, the UFO on the citizens doing that thing. You've had Sirius come out, the documentary Sirius, which has tons of evidence involved with not just the movie, but on paper. They have so much evidence, it's incredible, regarding the reality of extraterrestrials. And so does the Citizens Committee, who just convened in Washington recently. They have so many witnesses. It's really, I think the table has turned where now you have to say, wait, you can't do that anymore. You can't say this is not true.
Right, and you feel that the power of alien influence is their biggest weapon. Is that correct?
I know it is because it permeates the globe, especially in the United States, especially here. Yeah, you see, there's so much weird stuff going on here. They're responsible for many deaths. For example, the Boston bombing was alien. The fertilizer plant in Texas was alien. The limo exploding in San Francisco the other day was alien, and I can prove it.
Hey, hold that thought, will you, Jim? And when we get back, let's go into that. I would like to hear more about that. You're listening to The Truth Tonight Talk Radio. I'm your host, Roxy Lopez. Our guest this evening is Jim Bowden, author of The Ringer. We'll be right back.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message. Revolution Radio.
You don't see it, do you? How close we are to absolute chaos? The sick ones are sitting on their fat masses, eating and drink themselves into a stupor, polluting the world without a second thought while it goes down the toilet. Nobody wants to do the nasty work. You know, the shit that we all just think about. Most good citizens are just along for the ride and then bitch and moan and complain about everything when it doesn't work out. Not me. Get it done.
Revolution Radio, where we do the nasty work. www.freedomslips.com. Thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. If you plan to call in and speak with one of our hosts, please turn down your radio and separate yourself from any background noise and wait for the area code to be called on before you speak. And don't forget, Revolution Radio freedomslips.com is listener supported. So stop by the homepage, freedomslips.com, visit the site support area to help support the host you're listening to's airtime. Thank you. Revolution Radio freedomslips.com, where the truth never sleeps.
Hi, I'm Jason Brentwood with Crush the News, and you're listening to Revolution Radio. And now back to The Truth Denied with Roxy Lopez.
And thanks for joining us this Friday. Jim, you were just about ready to tell us some of your thoughts on what you can prove.
Well, Roxy, listen, I need to tell you something good, okay? I've been telling you a lot of bad stuff, and there's plenty out there as far as the Greys go, and those events that I mentioned are all were all alien inspired as far as the limo and Texas and Boston. There's no question about that. However, there are human extraterrestrials, and they help us. They helped me in the Ringer. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with Apollo 20, but there's photographs of a human girl who she had recently died, but those pictures are available to see, and they're quite human. Their eyes are a little bit bigger than ours, but they are human, and they are around. So that's the good news, and they do love us. So that's important.
And you said that they helped you in the Ringer?
They did, yes, because I don't know how they caught up with me or how they just must have seen that I was in the Ringer, and they did help me while I was in there. I don't know if I would have lived, frankly, had they not helped me. Most people don't live that go through it. They end up dead. So.
Really? Do you know anyone that has died or passed away or heard of someone who passed away?
Usually the way it goes, I would speculate to tell you that Ernest Hemingway was a victim. Because he shot himself in the head with that shotgun. But he was very talented. They're drawn to talent. They love stardom. They love Hollywood. They love anything to do with movies. Frankly, they like movies. I would say that most of the people in my situation either committed suicide, which is the preferable way to go, because if they won't kill you themselves. An ET won't. An alien or a Gray won't. They won't do it. They know better. Mm-hmm. But they'll have somebody do it for them. They'll have a human do it, or you'll mysteriously drown like the CIA guy did a few years ago. Mm-hmm. He came out and said something about ETs, and he had accidentally drowned like a week later. So there's lots of mysterious suicides and lots of accidents that happen with aliens. Lots.
Mm-hmm. What is the, you mentioned a little bit ago, the Sirius documentary, Greer is film. What's C5 telepathy program? What is that?
Well, I've been trying to get in touch with them, and I haven't been able to. Greer doesn't have an email for himself personally. I got in touch with his press agent, but they have a problem, and that is this. They won't allow you in the C5 telepathy program unless you believe that the universe is a good place and everything's fine. Okay? If you bring up that there are bad ETs, they don't want you there. So the problem is there are bad ETs, and here's how it works. Let's say I'm in the C5 program, okay? And all of a sudden, I'm out there exercising or trying to exercise some sort of telepathy. Well, a gray will be anything you want them to be. Jesus Christ, they don't care. Mother Mary, it doesn't matter. They'll be anything you want. Well, that is who this guy is contacting, thinking that everything's good, everything's fine. It's not. They're just getting you in their clutches to begin with. Now, Greer doesn't want to hear that, but it is the truth. That's the truth.
I wonder if anybody's been in opposition to his truth as far as this goes, because, you know, I've got to say, you're giving me goosebumps. You're giving me chills, Jim, because I have had several guests on the show who have been around a long time, many books, many documentaries types, and they are creeping out at this point with what they are discovering in the line of what you're saying. They are also experiencing a network of ETs that are on this planet. And, you know, I find this just... I just find it amazing. I do.
Roxy, I want to mention one thing, and I believe this. Maybe others might not agree with me, but I believe it. Okay, you've heard of reptilians, right?
Of course.
Okay, you've heard of those. Okay, you've heard of what, Palladians, something like that, right? Those
Palladians,
the
Archons.
The truth is, the Greys made them up. They don't exist. They do not exist. They are there to distract you from the Greys. They made them up. Look good. Go to Google, okay? Go to images. Put in reptilian. Try to find two that look alike. There's not any. They haven't even decided on what they want to make them look like yet.
Okay. Now, are they, you know, I don't know if you know any of this, but are they, these Greys, are they playing with our DNA as well?
Well, yeah, because they take your blood. They have a hybrid program where they're trying to. Their kids are so well. I'm not going to go into what their kids look like, but anyway, yeah. They. What bothers me is our women go up there who are pregnant, and then they'll come back not pregnant, and they take the fetuses and they do whatever in their test tubes or whatever the hell they do in their little spaceships. But they have a hybrid program because they know that they're broken as a species, and so they're trying to incorporate humans into their genetics.
Mm-hmm. That's a long-standing story too. I mean, that does not sound. I remember when I used to go to UFO forums and things like that in the 80s, and that was the talk then, that the Greys were in need of our DNA. Hence, they were taking. And I met quite a few women, Jim, who had been pregnant, and then suddenly they're not, and no sign of the baby.
But Roxy, according to Roper, you've had 3.7 million abductions. When is enough?
I know.
They shouldn't be coming in your house and taking you to their spaceship.
Right.
It shouldn't happen.
Right. And there's really no preventative measure for it, is there?
Well, we have to find them. We've got to find them.
Well, yeah.
They hide in dimensions. When they come out they do hide in dimensions, that's for sure. They do. And they're also on the moon, as far as I suspect they are on the moon. But when they do come out, for example, the human extraterrestrials, some of them like our animals more than us, and I'm just being honest with you there. They do. In Argentina, the Greys had mutilated a horse, for one, and then I saw another animal that they had mutilated. Now, they blew the shit out of some gray craft, and it's on YouTube if you want to see it. They'll call it a meteor. It's not. It's not a meteor. It is a craft that they blew the hell out of it because they don't like them mutilating our animals.
Okay. And you're talking about the human extraterrestrials.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Okay. And with that in mind, with the experience of being a human extraterrestrial, for instance, for yourself, what is the contact like with a human extraterrestrial? Have you ever had one?
Oh, all the time. I've been telepathic for about 6 years. And, yeah, I speak with them Well, the Greys are annoying. As far as telepathically, they're very annoying because they're alien. They're not like us. And the humans basically offer suggestions, which is kind of different than telepathy a little bit. But they're always right, so I always follow their suggestions. They're smarter than I am, so I do follow their suggestions. And they teach me things like be quiet when you're eating, don't stuff like that. How to clean up the house if a girl's coming over and stuff.
Oh my goodness! Simple things. Yeah. Did they help you write the book?
No, but I was in a very good place when I wrote the book. I'm not sure. I can't really assign that to anybody, but maybe they did. I don't know. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. And when you were...
I know that... Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Well, no, as far as they go, I can't say enough about them because without them, I don't know if I wouldn't have already committed suicide, to tell you the truth. The Greys work on me daily. They do not stop because they know that I'm aware of them, their program, what they're about. When they make a hit, I know it. For example, that limo in San Francisco, that was them, and I know it was them. They don't want that out. They don't want anybody to know that.
What limo?
So they go after me on a very frequent basis. They'd love for me to have an accident.
What limo are you talking about? Limo in
There were 9 women. I don't know if it was a Golden Gate Bridge, but it was a limo with 9 women in it. 5 of them died. You can see by the pictures a large flash in the back, which isn't gasoline related. It is ET related or alien related. Mm-hmm. And you can also see, and nobody's paid attention to this, look at the front of the engine. It's smoking. Nobody said anything about that. They keep talking about a fire in the trunk. Well, you got a fire, you got a big blast in the trunk, plus you've got a smoking engine that's obviously smoking. That limo got hit by a UFO.
Mm-hmm. When was this?
10 days ago, something like that.
All right. After the show, I'll get a link from you to that if I can. That story.
I'll send you the photos, and please
I would like
please
to
notice the hood of the car because it's smoking like there's no tomorrow. But the media never picked up on it.
And they claim it was just a fire in the trunk and the car exploded.
Yes.
And were these women in the car, the people in the car that died, were they anybody of? And I don't mean to make it sound like nobody's important because we all are, but were they of anybody of importance? No,
I don't believe so.
Okay.
They were normal women.
Okay, that's interesting. That's really interesting. Well, I'd like to look into that story as well. Now,
it's odd to me that it happened in California because the Greys have no rights in California. They do have rights in other states. They own other states. For example, Texas and Arizona, they own them. But they don't own California, so I was very surprised that it happened here.
And how do they own Texas and Arizona?
It's territorial.
Okay.
It's territorial.
Who gave them the right?
I couldn't tell you that, but I can only tell you that their presence in both Arizona and Texas is huge. Whereas in California, they don't have that kind of sway. They just don't have it here. They don't have it. It's just they don't have it in California.
What do you think the Phoenix Lights was all about?
Personally, I believe they were marking their territory because they started at the very top of the state and followed a highway down, and it took them, an hour and a half to get to the bottom of the state. They followed that highway the entire time. They were making a spectacle of themselves. They didn't care about any people whatsoever. They could care less that 10,000 people saw them. They were making a statement to an enemy, and they were saying, this is ours. Stand back.
So they were marking their territory. Now, just out of curiosity, okay. Just out of curiosity, where are they? You know what I mean? Are they parked somewhere? Are they living amongst us? Where are they? Those who flew those ships over the state of Arizona during the Phoenix Lights, where are they? Where are those beings?
I would assume they're hiding in another dimension.
Okay.
That's my guess. I mean, I couldn't. That's a guess, But that's the easy way to do it, because if you're in a UFO and you want to pop in and pop out, remember, some UFOs disappear. You can be looking at it and then it's gone. Well, where did it go? Well, into another dimension.
Right. Can you speak to a little bit about this, this April 2012, these 5 large UFOs flying over the surface of the moon? How much do you know about this? Is there footage of this?
Well, those were motherships because they were so big. And I know that there's some activity that occurs on the moon between humans and I always thought extraterrestrials are good and aliens are bad. I have to separate them like that. So let's say that the extraterrestrial humans were flying over the moon. They're there looking for somebody to kill.
Okay.
They don't like the aliens.
What is our
Greys.
military doing about this? Because that means our military knows about this interaction.
The Greys have racked up DARPA, the military. They make the most idiotic weapons that you can imagine. Look at DARPA sometime. I mean, it's just pure insanity, the stuff they're making with our money. No, unfortunately, the government itself plus the military is largely influenced, and that's why I say that's the biggest weapon is their influence, is largely influenced by Greys. There are people, for example, Alan Grayson, Ron Paul, in government, who are not influenced by these things, but there are just too few of them.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that would be why we're having a real tough time with government and not being able to be heard as we the people, and how they've just sort of run amok, and the corporations? I mean, is this part of that alien agenda influence on them?
It's like you study the stuff in the air. What is that?
Chemtrails.
Chemtrails, okay? Chemtrails are just one of the many, many ways that they have of influencing us. They're in our water. When you go to get a receipt, next time you take a receipt, rub your fingers together. See if you don't have a filmy essence on your fingers. That is also part of the absorption into their influence. They have it started, frankly, in the 1980s. That's when they really hit hard. That's when they really, because they've been here for thousands of years. But as far as their agenda, taking over the U.S. and that sort of thing, making this place a hellhole, which they've done, they started that in the 1980s. But they have many, many ways of influencing, not just mentally. They use, television and all kinds of things, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's all assaults against the people, no matter what way you want to look at it. How do we reach out to these human extraterrestrials? Let's say there's somebody who's not being attacked at all, but wants to get this help of these human extraterrestrials. How would they do that?
You couldn't.
Oh, why not?
I don't know. I don't know why. I know they're in contact with me, but I don't know. Here's why. They don't want anyone exercising telepathy because for the reasons I told you about.
Right.
If you do that, there's these the Greys or any other bad ETs, okay, can impersonate a human ET down to a T. You will think that you're talking to a human when you're not. You're talking to a Grey. That's why they are very fearful of people wanting to go out there and exercise telepathy because they know it's a trap.
Right.
But don't worry about it. They're worried. They're watching over us. So just keep that in mind. They're doing everything they can. And they care about us. They do.
What's the now? You said that you've had telepathy been using telepathic communication for about 6 years. Prior to that, did you have telepathy prior to that?
No, I didn't have it until the Ringer. Wait a second. 2008 is when it started.
Mm-hmm.
It started in 2008.
Okay. And prior to that, you didn't have that. And prior to that, were you at all interested in like ETs or UFOs or anything like that? Did you have any?
Well, I was abducted in 1987 in New Mexico, and it was just a standard kind of abduction where a gray got me and told me a bunch of bullshit and then let me off. You know, nothing happened for 11 years after that. Nothing at all. And then in 2008, things started
to rock. And so what about for you personally, Jim, and I don't know if this is in the book or not, but do you know others that you've been talking to? For instance, the book, does that get people writing you who have had experiences or who are telepathic and who are reading what you're reading? You know what I mean? Do you have a lot of people like that, a fellowship, if you will?
No, I can't say that I do. And the reason when I wrote the book, the deal was when I was in the Ringer, I'll write the book, but I want my kids. Well, I wrote the book and I didn't get my kids. And so I was very, when it came time to promote it and when it came time to do anything along those lines, I could care less. I wanted to bury it, which is what I did. I just buried it. I didn't want it. I didn't care if anybody read it. Because they didn't do their end of the deal. I never got my kids. So that's why it was buried. Now I just have recently hooked up with a publisher in Houston, and he's gonna do the book worldwide, and I'm gonna do a foreword to it so it gets updated so people are aware that, because when I wrote it, I was pretty naive. I said, yeah, I survived this, and look what happened to me during the Ring, and there's all kinds of crazy stuff that went on. But I want people to know that they're dangerous. You know, these things are dangerous, and I'm going to make that noticeable when I
right. You want to make it more clear. So it sounds like what happened is you felt betrayed, and that probably more than disappointed you, probably depressed you, and it would depress me too for a time being. But so with the worldwide book and everything, what would you say is the single most important concept or emotion that you would like to convey to humanity based on your book?
I would say I think that more people are going to be dealing with extraterrestrials, and if the Greys are hanging around here, and I hope they're not, I hope we get rid of them, but if they are hanging around here, you are far stronger than they are. So don't worry about it.
So that you're telling humanity that we will survive this. We will survive.
I know we will. They don't understand that, the Greys, but we will survive. In fact, things are going to get so good shortly that nobody's going to even recognize this place.
Is that right? Can you give us a little example of that?
Well, it has to do with the age of Aquarius. Right now we're going through a rough patch, and it's pretty rough. And for me, it's very rough because I'm having to deal with these things every day. But I'm certain that I'm not sure how it's going to work out as far as there may be a split of the population, those who are intuitive and those who are not. And you're going to depend on, in the future, you will depend on your intuition. There's no question about that. None. You will depend on it.
And honor it, no doubt. And do you think that humanity might be going through an evolution?
Well, we're going through a period, I don't know what it was like when Pisces started, but I know that Aquarius, it's much bigger than you ever think it's going to be as far as the events that are unfolding, like you were talking about with the politics and the military and things like that. It looks like everybody's going to die, kind of. It looks that way, but it's not that way. The Greys would like you to think that, but it's just not that way. Go to the store, go to Safeway, go anywhere you want. Everybody's pretty normal. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, everybody's getting along pretty good. We're out there still having fun, so things aren't that dire. But they would like you to think that they are. Of course, the headlines reflect that. The media comes across that way. So they own the media too, the stupid Greys do.
Right.
But it's really not that bad. It's not.
Right. And so that's just a head game, isn't it? It's a super head game. And a lot of people have already started to figure that out, by the way, Jim. So I think you're right.
It's true. I mean, the other thing is this: if you are involved with ETs in the future, make sure that you spend some time doing something very wholesome, because you need that. You need to watch a Walt Disney movie, or you need to go outside, or you need to do something that is very wholesome, because they are anything but wholesome.
Okay. Yeah, and this has been the recommendation of many of my guests as well. So, again, you write a blog or write for a blog, All Voices, and we have all of your links linked up on thetruthDenied.com. And, of course, the book is at Amazon. It's called The Ringer, an Extraterrestrial Proving Ground. And if you all want to pick it up, and, of course, we'll have the archive of this show on video on the YouTube channel and an article with all of Jim's contact information for everybody. So, I really want to thank you so much for joining us on the show this evening. We've got about a minute left. And can you tell me just a bit about the blog that you write for, The Voices?
Oh, well, I put the Ringer in there just to put it in there, I guess. But
I saw that.
I did write an article. It's called How Government Has Really Screwed Up Families. And it had to do with, frankly, if the government would come clean, I would be with my son and my daughter right now and never would have had any problems, never would have gone to jail for having lunch with my kid, for having lunch with Sam. Mm-hmm. Never would have had to deal with this psychologist for some evaluation that is meaningless because it's not true.
Right.
But nevertheless, it completely screwed up my life. And,
right. Well, Jim, we're out of time.
Mm-hmm.
We're so out of time. So I want to thank you for the show. Thank you for coming on the show. And again, the book is called The Ringer, an Extraterrestrial Proving Ground. And thanks, Jim. Take care now.
Thanks, Roxy. Okay.
Bye-bye. Okay. Bye-bye now. Still Ridiculed. This book examines how extraterrestrials can and do mentally influence people. If you haven't been abducted or been in contact with extraterrestrials, you may find this book shocking. For those of you who have had contact with extraterrestrials, you will understand, and that's the author, Jim Bowden. Jim, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for taking the time to be with us tonight.
Hi, thanks, Roxy. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. With that in mind, a lot of our listeners are, some are, we have some abductees in the listening audience. We have people that talk about mind control as well. They feel that they're being mind controlled by some presence. And then, of course, we've interviewed countless UFO documentary writers and film people, and we just keep coming back to this. So thank you so much for taking the time to write the book, The Ringer, an Extraterrestrial Proving Ground. Can you tell us a little bit more, other than what I had read about the book? Can you tell us about a little bit more about yourself for the listeners who are new to you, Jim, and what caused you, what influenced you to write this book?
Well, I've owned a few businesses during my life, but the last thing I did, I was a stockbroker for a while. And the reason I wrote the book is because, frankly, my 11-year-old son and I were mentally attacked in my home in Arizona. And there was quite a bit of physical evidence to go along with that. But it was very severe. My son was carted off to a mental ward, and there he gave statements which, if you read them and you've had any experience with ETs, you can see that he's not lying. He's telling the truth. He was scared. He said they were very powerful, and they were. That's what started the experience for both of us. We were separated. He was eventually talked into believing it never happened. That's easy to do when you're 11 years old. And that's essentially when the Ringer began for me. And it lasted probably at least 3 months.
Oh, my goodness. And did this develop out of nowhere, Jim?
Yeah, totally out of nowhere. He did tell me that he had some extraterrestrial goings-on happening at school prior to this happening. at home. And I believe him. He has no reason to lie to me. So if there is, everything's mental. So you have to remember, you have to pay attention. And if you want to try and dismiss it, I suppose you could. But if it's, I guess the word is severe enough, you can't dismiss it.
Right. That's what I get a lot of reports about mental.
Revolution Radio proudly presents live from Phoenix, Arizona, the Truth Denied Talk Radio with host Roxy Lopez. Join us here for topics you won't hear about on mainstream news, such as chemtrails, GMOs, nutrition, and conspiracy facts regarding your personal sovereignty. Humanity is 7 billion strong. We are the majority. And now, live from the Valley of the Sun, your host, Roxy Lopez.
And I want to wish you a very good evening, and thanks so much for joining us on this wonderful Friday the 17th of May. And boy, is 2013 flying by. I just have to say that every week practically, because I don't know where time gets sucked into a black hole around here, but it's probably because we're all so busy. Thanks for joining us. Hello, everybody in the chat room. I totally count on you for questions for our guests. Tonight we have two guests. Fabulous guests, and I look forward to bringing them on. In the first hour, we'll be having Jim Bowden. He is the author of The Ringer, an extraterrestrial proving ground. You really want to abductions, constantly. And people are very confused about it because there's different kinds of gang stalking out there and government interference and, of course, radio waves and microwaves and all kinds of stuff they're playing with, in the military and so forth. So people get very confused. They don't know what they got hit with. What made you hone in on ET as opposed to, let's say, military military?
I knew that it had to be something like an extraterrestrial. I mean, if you remember or if you recall, there's something called the Jinn, which is in the Middle East. And I'm not sure if they're around or not, if they're wives' tale or whatever, but they could probably do what these ETs did according to their legend. But as far as I know, it is extraterrestrial. When I would wake up in the morning, as soon as I would wake up, the very second I woke up, I was attacked with a feeling of such dread that I was going to die. That was the whole purpose of it. And it lasted probably an hour. This took place over 5 mornings, and eventually you get used to it because you realize, well, this is going to go away. It went away yesterday. It'll go away again. So you work your way through it, or you allow it to finish itself, and you don't die. But that's their whole idea, is to make you feel like you are literally going to die.
And are there words? Are there words with this? Is it going to pay attention to this because it sounds absolutely fabulous? And Jim has a special take on this. The book was published in October of 2012. And in April of 2012, astronomers Paul Davies and Robert Wagner, who are affiliated with Arizona State University, filmed 5 large UFOs flying over the surface of the moon. Even though Paul Davies is a theoretical physicist and a cosmetologist who is now involved in astrobiology, and Robert Wagner is affiliated with the ASU's School of Earth and Space Exploration. U.S. mainstream media did not consider this scientific research to be newsworthy. Isn't that interesting? While scientific discoveries of this magnitude should be front page news, as you all know. They are purposely buried, preventing any educative knowledge regarding extraterrestrials. People are encouraged to trust their eyes and ears regarding every material object around themselves except UFOs. While a plane certainly looks like a plane and a helicopter looks like a helicopter, UFOs have been socially controlled and are seen as anything but a UFO within the United States. We have been conditioned to dismiss the global extraterrestrial aerial phenomenon, while the idea of an extraterrestrial presence is